Good morning. Greetings from Italy. That's awesome. Thank you for being here, man. Taking time out of your afternoon. Jordan, man, good morning. So I got a little bit lucky with my nugget short. Did not think I would be waking up to a 22-point fade, but I'll take it. Yesterday, it was showing some relative weakness. Yesterday it was showing some relative weakness when you compared it to gold because gold hit an all-time high. And then all of a sudden, there wasn't a whole lot of strength in the GDX, which is something that I noted in yesterday's watch list or after hours recap. And this morning, well, lo and behold, an absolutely awesome fade. What do I make of BYND short squeeze? What do I make out of that short squeeze? The same thing I make out of all short squeezes. I leave them alone. Because ultimately that company's a zero. And, maybe it goes higher, maybe it doesn't. You got stopped out of, oh, yeah. So that's the difference. If you were in GLD yesterday, you got hit, right? Because I shorted on Thursday. So I shorted into some of this strength on Thursday. And then, hold on, let me close my door, my dogs. So I shorted into some of that strength on Thursday, and I got obviously a pretty big Friday move down. And then yesterday, this thing was squeezing up, but what wasn't squeezing up and making a new high was the GDX. And you could kind of note it. I'm shorting nugget into this weakness or into the strength, but very, very little bit of weakness on a smaller time frame. And then obviously what I did was I set a percentage stop where it's like I knew that I was comfortable with it going, percents higher, but I had a, small position, effectively 6%. And then you get this pretty big fade. And then yesterday, nothing. So not acting like GLD at all. So yeah, I'm kind of lucky, but I'll take some luck every now and again. Super 22-point fade. I mean, that's GLL. Yeah, I think pullbacks could be viable. And the reason is I think gold in the short term is wildly extended. And it's forget about extended. Positioning is very crowded the last time I checked. Obviously, we don't have COT data in front of us, so I don't really know what to make of it because our government needs to go back to work so the CFTC can report the updated COT data. So I don't know. But I think GLL, I think Dust is good. But I'm sitting there with, $180 average, about $35 up on Nuggets. So usually I never get that lucky, but the short side's been kind of friendly to me lately. So just good stock selection and that normally helps. Any longs I still hold? Yes. I've got ARC. And I've owned this thing for over 4 months now, and I think it looks great. A little bit choppy in here, but I think it looks really good. I still have Rocket Lab, and I've got this thing from my initial buy was on 10.2. So been in this thing for about 3 weeks now, and I've got Tesla. So this thing's working well. And my initial buy was on 9.5. So been in this thing for almost 2 months now. Any suggestions on the long side? Yeah, my suggestion is wait till we start to report on some of these earnings, right? You want to watch names that are gapping up, something like General Motor. I know this one's kind of slow, but just as an example. All right, this thing had a pretty nice setup into here, and then you're hanging out, and it basically at a new all-time high, $64. Again, not necessarily the name I want to buy, but as an example, it's what you want to be paying attention to. Names gapping up on earnings. So today and after hours, you're going to have Netflix. Tomorrow you're going to have Tesla. And here's the thing. I don't know if we're going to, and I talked about this on last night's watch list video. I don't know if we're going to gap up and then fade, right? Like Microsoft last quarter. I don't know if we're going to gap up, fade, and then rebound like SoFi. I don't know if we're going to gap up, fade, and chop around like Roblox. I don't know if we're just going to gap up and continue, right? I have no idea. Or if we're going to gap down and get bought up. So it's just like, I don't know, right? Nobody ever knows. Anybody who tells you that they know what's going to happen this quarter for earnings just needs to be unfollowed immediately, because nobody has a crystal ball. So I have no idea what's going to happen. And that'll obviously determine the direction of the market for the next few months. Is it going to be choppy? Are we going to be in like a, slow little dripping downtrend? Are we just going to continue to grind higher? I don't know. So I think that there's opportunities on both sides of the market, of course. But for now, I'm a little bit hands off. Keep what I own. I do have, an extra small short that I put on yesterday. So I have another short in SNDK. I've obviously got my technically a short in Nugget. I've got a short in Rigetti from 55, and I've got a short in UAMY from 18. So, I've got some shorts working. I've got a couple longs working. The shorts have been a little bit less headache lately, because even I think about a name like MSTR, and I shorted this one here, and I just got greedy and I didn't cover any sub 300. I should have reshorted some again going back through the 200. I did not. And this was, effectively a 70-point stress-free trade, where you're just allowed to just cover some off, and then you're just kind of holding on these declining moving averages. So even the shorts that I didn't take, where I know I should have, those have been a little bit less stressful. They've been kind of working in my direction. And, just when you've got good stock selection, even on the short side, and the market's technically in an uptrend, you can still make a ton of money as long as your stock selection is proper and you show up at the right time. Yeah. So it's like I shorted MSTR because I knew it, but yeah, you just got to hunt them down, right? Like, what's stopping you from hunting down an MMYT that looks about ready to cave? What's stopping you from potentially shorting a Costco against the 200, or a few weeks ago against the 200 to get this kind of a washout? I know it's slow and it's not ideal, but they can be found. Again, is Costco the one that I really want to short? No, not really. But there are names that are acting poorly. You just have to hunt them down. You should be looking for stocks that failed last quarter, right? Like, what about something like Shake Shack, right? Where you gap down on earnings, and we just talked about it. If you gap down on earnings, that's no good. So how do you know you just don't gap down on earnings? And then this is the one you need to have on your list to short. And all it really does is just fade for the entirety of the quarter. For literally 3 straight months, it does nothing but go lower. So you need to focus, especially now that we're in earnings season, focus on earnings winners. And then if you think that the market's getting a little choppy and probably the risk reward is to the downside, focus on, names going lower. And then like with Shaq, you'd ask yourself, are there any other stocks within the group not acting all that great? Well, Cake, right, broke down from this little shelf and did nothing on earnings. And you could look at another one and say something like Chipotle has been absolutely garbage for a long time, right? So it's like you're shorting stocks that are already in a weak group. Chipotle, Shaq, Cake. We looked at Cake. DRI is another one. How's this one looking? Yeah, look at what this one did on earnings. So it's like you're looking for stocks that have been performing poorly on earnings. And then, like, when do you get involved into them? Well, that's the $1 million question. When something's in a downtrend, I personally like pushes against declining moving averages, but you can easily find them. It's just a matter of knowing where to look. And you can even go on to FinViz and look at groups and look at the, when earnings season is, in the middle of it, you go to like 1 week performers, 1 month performers, and just look at the group that's been acting the worst if you really want to short. If you're not comfortable at shorting, then don't short. What are my thoughts on Tesla heading into earnings? If they beat, do you think they can make a move, or are you just going to wait? Yeah, I have no idea, right? I'm not going to lie to you and tell you like, this is what I know is going to happen. They're humanoid robots and they're robo-taxis and I'm not going to bullshit you. So I just don't know. I own it from a whole lot lower, which is what you were supposed to do. This breakout here was as textbook breakouts get. And then it had textbook follow through on day number 2. And then it had a little gap up on day number 3. And then it's done absolutely nothing wrong since then. So, what happens into earnings, I have no idea. I'm hopeful for a bit of a gap down, actually. A gap down and, maybe stay above that $410 level-ish. So that's kind of what I'm hopeful for. And then it gets bought up. And institutions use that weakness to accumulate more. Will the robotics bounce? Man, every time I look at SYM, my heart breaks. I think SYM looks fine. I own this thing down here when it reclaimed the 50-day, and I sold some off into the strength and then got stopped out on 925, only to see this thing then go higher. I had this thing at 50 and it moves $30 from my average. Man, what a real heartbreaker. I don't like RR, and Serve is second fiddle to SYM. I didn't do my live session yesterday. What does that mean? I'm not sure what that means. Yep. Yeah. MBIS, CoreWeave, even Oracle look like they want to visit their 50-day. Palantir looks ready for this week, needs to take out 187.5 in a good market. Netflix, yeah, they report after hours. I don't like this setup. I mean, a little bit of like a, nice job surfing the 20. Nice job doubling off the lows effectively. It needs a little bit more sideways. I think it's a little, short consolidation, but it could be. DK, PARR. Man, despite what crude oil is doing, these names are just monsters. Nice job for PAR sticking around. What percentage long, short, and cash right now? I can tell you. Let me look. I am more short than I am long dollar-wise. I'm not very invested, though, in the market at the moment. But I am much more short than I am long. Not much more, but almost 2-to-1. Looking at the group performance, Basic Materials, Take a Bath. Do you like any upcoming groups? Yeah, Basic Materials, and they might actually bounce. But when you get this extended, and maybe not so much MP, but when you get extended like, what was it, USAR, you can't go vertical like this for forever. So, this wasn't totally unexpected. You go from 20 to 44 in a handful of days. That you can't go you can't go much more vertical than that. A pullback is totally fine. Same thing with UAMY, although I think that this name's actually hot garbage. But when you go from like $4 to 20 in like a month, I don't know what group is next until we get through earnings. Archer, Joby, I like the way that these have been hanging in there, but I don't love this distribution, that came into here. So we need to just build out the right-hand side of the chart, get further away from this distribution, and then tighten up. If these are going to go right from these sloppy setups, I don't want them. Joby looks better. Nice job holding on to the 50. If you were paying attention yesterday, then maybe Joby was viable over prior day high. Really nice job for Joby kind of holding that 50 and taking out prior day high. Yeah, Puerto Rico, John. Yeah, that worked out well, man. I didn't expect, Nugget to be working out so pain-free. Yeah, Galaxy's earnings were nice. I'm not sure if this is going to need a good crypto market, but it's acting great. It depends. If you opened a few longs yesterday and you didn't have much cushion, I don't mind, getting off of them. But if you're in like old longs like I am, that I've had for, a month effectively at least on most, then you just let them work. But if they're new, then yeah. Am I going to cover on dust today? What do you mean cover on dust? I'm not long dust. I'm short nugget. So I'm not long dust. So I don't know what that means. GH, these names have been acting well. This whole group. I don't think that this is viable. You kind of had a few entries. I actually thought that this one was best down here, coming out of this bigger base. But yeah, maybe. Thoughts on CCJ short side? Nah, it's just coming into the 50-day. Last thing I really want to do is, short something on like the fourth down day in a row. We'll see if it can get down to the 50, maybe bounce and then start to reject the 20, and then maybe you can get short there. But I'm not going to get short, on the fourth down day in a row. I don't know that Galaxy is an episodic pivot, guys. Earnings gap ups aren't classified as episodic pivots. Yeah, MP over prior day high would look good, but keep your eyes on those rare earth names. HBAN, these are regional banks. No, there's no setup here. And not to mention, these are kind of slow. Right? You don't really want to be in names this slow. Yeah, but that's not really helpful for my situational awareness. I know that when the VIX is going down, the market tends to melt up, which is fine. But that doesn't mean that my shorts have been bouncing, right? In fact, my shorts have been going straight down. So it doesn't really help me, doing what I'm going to do. Do I ever pick a stock with a setup event if the group index looks bad? I don't know what that means. Yeah, Eat's another one of those food stocks that aren't looking too good. Yeah, I would be careful shorting, into this ugly down move like this. Plus, if I'm not mistaken, Eat will have earnings soon. They have earnings on the 29th, so 8 days. If you wanted to short Eat, here was your shot when it was losing the 200 simple moving average. You get this move down, you get this consolidation, and you get the break of the 200 simple moving average. If you really wanted to short, otherwise, for me, pops into declining moving averages. You're getting rewarded on CRISPR. I was watching this one yesterday. I almost got long CRISPR yesterday, but I didn't. You bought Amazon as a bounce of the 200 simple moving average. Why did you not keep your stop at low of day or the 200 simple? You said you got rid of some of your longs that weren't showing you profit. I mean, where did you buy this thing? You buy it as it was a 5-minute opening range break and reclaiming the 200. There's your 200. LEU's far too extended. I can tell you what I think about it right now. Far too extended. And no setup. So nothing to do with it. Leave it alone. And IREN, no setup. Far too extended. Where's the base? Guys, if for anybody following along, I was talking about IREN down here. Literally in June. So, and it's crazy because I'm not picking on you, Lionel, but, for people to love it up here, like, where is the setup? It has to be some kind of a gorgeous setup. I thought it looked good in here, way down here. And then I thought it looked fairly interesting going through this base, although it was a little sloppy. All right, you tried to break out, and then you failed once again, and then and this action got me really interested, where you tried to break down and you recovered right away, back above all key moving averages. So, it's giving you some opportunities, even like right in here, right? This little pullback against the 10 before the move had really gotten started. But up here, this is wide and loose. Giant down day and then big up day and then giant down days and then down some more. Like, I don't see how one could look at this right here and be like, oh yeah, this is going to go to 60, 70, 80. Like, I don't know that. But I liked how tight it was down here along with HUT, right down here. I liked how tight it was, with cores, kind of leading the way at one point right here. Same exact time in June. I liked how this thing was acting when Cypher was taking on some volume, right? And they all kind of do it right around the same time. Right here's June, and this thing's getting back above the 200 and trading absolutely gigantic volume, right? So then when you see volume like this, pullbacks become viable, right? And look at that little setup. You bounce right off the 200, you tighten up for a handful of days, and you're gone. So, it's like, saying you like IREN up here is almost like liking Cypher up here. Like, there's nothing. There's no setup. There's absolutely nothing to do with it. Yeah, I'm not picking on you. I hope you know that. I'm just trying to tell you there's nothing to do with it. Leave it alone. At least not for now. It might be better in the future. ETN. Yeah, Eaton. Kind of slow. Market feels vulnerable. I mean, Apple and Google just saw a new all-time high yesterday. So I don't want to use the word vulnerable. It could come down at any moment. It's gone up so much, but yeah, I still don't mind Palantir. I do like that the volume is drying up. I don't really think about Richard Wyckoff when I'm taking any of my entries or anything like that. Yeah, genomic names doing really well. Yeah, GEV a little bit weak, CEG as well, and then VST as well. So a bit of volatility here. Not a ton to do. No, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be waiting for earnings. I mean, earnings basically kick off in a real way today with Netflix. So just kind of waiting on Netflix to report. And obviously this morning we had Galaxy. So a good one to keep an eye on today, and General Motors, a good one to keep an eye on today. I don't really know what's going to happen with these, but keeping the names that gapped up on earnings on the radar seems to be the right idea. Yeah, it could be that MP offers a low risk entry today. Got to take out prior day high. So, but I think, it could very well give a low risk entry today. Any longs for NVIDIA soon? Similar to MP, it's got to take out a prior day high. I don't Yeah, I think, O'Neill would have bought them if he did. Something like QBTS had fairly decent earnings and sales, as they were reclaiming maybe or taking out, highs on 917. Um, I think, Rigetti and IONQ offered up absolutely textbook setups right here or even right there. And even IONQ, I thought was the nicest of the bunch, offered up a picture perfect setup on 9.9. So I don't know because I can't ask him if he would buy these, but the quantum stocks for the most part are really shitty companies. But they've made big moves. And, when you make a big move up and you don't go away and you churn tons of volume, $1 billion+ a day, this is what can happen. So, oh, will I be trimming any nugget? No. I won't be covering any at all. So I think that this could easily go down to the 50-day. So maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after. But for me, this is a 50, 60 point move. And then, maybe I'll take a little bit off. But really, my thesis is on gold. So I think gold can come back down to 4,000. And then I would want to, maybe trim off some nugget. And maybe there's a chance this thing could get all the way to, maybe near 100 because of the decay. So who knows? I'm trying to be patient. Do I think crypto is leading the stock market? How's that possible? So the stock market's at an all-time high and crypto is not. How would crypto be leading? TXG. This looks pretty god-awful, though. I mean, this looks pretty horrendous. Like, this doesn't even have a ascending 200-day. So just because something's above a prior day high does not make it viable at all. There's more qualifications than above prior day high for it to be viable. STRL, yeah, this is very nice. Moves almost 5% per day and trades like 170 million bucks a day. I don't know if this is a high type flag, but it sure looks pretty decent. SoFi, nice job bouncing off the 50-day a few days ago. Actually, a handful of times. Once, twice, 3 times. It's going to have to take out 10/10s high at some point. CLF, steel name, Cleveland Cliffs. Maybe. Man, I wish there was other stocks within this group acting well. Keep my eye on it for later. Thoughts on KRE regional banks? No thanks. Home Depot, too slow. Nah. SOUN? I don't know. I don't really see a setup here. Is it viable against the 20 as a bounce because it's held the 20 so many times? Maybe. But I don't know. I don't think so. No, the NASDAQ doesn't have to take out, that high, but I mean, ideally it does, because you're asking that because what if the NASDAQ has like from here and it doesn't take that high out and it were to have like a 15% correction and then give me a follow through day? Well, then I would be a buyer of stocks, but just lower, as the stock market's lower. But yeah, what I don't want to do is I don't want to deal with a lot of chop. I've been dealing with a whole lot less headache on the short side. So, mentally that's kind of where I'm at. And we're in the middle of earnings season. So I also do just kind of want to, be patient and let these earnings come out. Trades 20 million bucks a day. It's far too illiquid. I don't know. So I don't just buy something because it's, at the 200 simple moving average. It has to, start to turn up on a smaller time frame for me to even get involved. Marvell, kind of the laggard in the semi space, but it is starting to get above the 200 as well. Yeah, there's nothing there for me. At least not today. Nvidia slow, but maybe it can also get going over prior day high. Thoughts on Win back above the 50 simple moving average? Recession's been canceled. Recession canceled. Guys, you guys have multiple brokers that you can short at. You could short at Interactive Brokers. You could short at E-Trade. You could short on Centerpoint. You can short on Cobra. You could short on Lightspeed. You could short on Trade Zero. You could short. You could even get borrows over at TD Ameritrade. And pretty soon you'll be able to short at Robinhood. LASR? Nah. I don't really like these. I mean, maybe. I don't know. There's just got to have earnings soon. So maybe. Hood looked like a decent pullback buy yesterday. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, but it also kind of rejected the 10-day yesterday. I don't really know what's going to happen. Guys, it's like we're so close to earnings season. It's better to just be patient. I don't really think about resistance levels that are 1 year old. You know, it's most likely that a lot of those holders are gone. Yeah, AVAV. Now this one could be interesting over prior day high, over 368.70s, and it didn't go away. Very nice. CCJ lower. Yeah. CoreWeave kind of selling off this morning too. Have I looked at Bros? Yeah, I've looked at all the food stocks. Bros is nasty too. I mean, doing a nice job bouncing back off those lows, but there's nothing going on here. You know, maybe on earnings it gaps up as well and finally does something, but Cisco, man, make the 90s great again. So slow though, man. 2% per day. Can't do it. Transmedics, now this is one I can get behind. Love the story. They have earnings coming up soon. I think I want to say the 29th or something. Yeah, 29th. I also noticed you had like an airline name looking pretty decent. Delta reported recently and didn't go away. Delta looks okay. No, Fannie Mae. No. HVC means high volume close. SYM, fine. It's my favorite robotics name if there is one. ARQQ. Man, this is sloppy. No, it'll take a long time. Don't even look at this for a few weeks, probably. Yeah, massive base for GEV. Maybe it takes earnings, gapping it up. CoreWeave on a 50 SMA bounce. What will you want to see with CoreWeave? You'll also want to see Oracle and NBIS turning up as well. EOS E2 extended. Oh, appreciate you guys. Sorry I hopped on a little bit later. I was doing a morning broadcast with IU this morning. I will see you guys bright and early tomorrow. My thoughts on the gold move are that it's done for now. You know, you'd have to wait on the sidelines till it builds a whole new base. So, and I'm short Nugget, so I want it to come lower, maybe back to 4,000. Appreciate you guys. You guys have an awesome trading day today. I will see you guys bright and early tomorrow.